Good evening and welcome to the Pirates Fan Forum here on DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. I'm your host, Gary Morgan, a little frustrated with technology as we speak, but getting through it as best I can. With me, as always, is a man who is still smiling about Kenny Pickett in black and gold, my co-host, Jim Stamm. Jim, how you doing today, brother?
I'm doing good, man. I closed out the season with a win. We went down kind of on a last-minute decision, beautiful weather, and we got to see the Pirates close it out on a good note. So weather's going to be getting colder. We're not going to have too many more days like that.
Always nice to see, man. And joining us today is one of my favorite people to talk baseball with. You know him from AT&T Sportsnet and wearing the black and gold himself. He is the Fort, Michael McKenry. Fort, welcome back to the show. People forget you were on this a long time ago. And how you doing today, man?
I appreciate you first for having me. And I'm looking forward to it. It's been way too long. I like the work you guys do. And I'm looking forward to diving deep. And you're right, technology, man.
How many grown adults does it take to get a meeting that we can record?
Yeah, it's like putting a light bulb in. You guys are spinning a ladder and I'm holding it. It's a mess.
It was terrific. It was almost like watching them stitch the bullpen together at the end of the season, wasn't it?
Oh, man.
All right, let's hit the ground running, shall we? I mean, first up, I think we should put a real quick bow on the season. And I mean like lightning quick, boys, because we have all off season to do this. Ain't no reason to cram everything into one. I think we only get one night to pick a catcher's brain too, so I don't want to waste a whole lot of time talking about the entire season.
That's right.
So let's start there. I think we should each kind of name one statement that we think kind of sews up 2022 in a nutshell as best you can, and then banter about that back and forth a little bit. So I'll get it started since I sprung it on you guys. And mine is, I like the team better now than I did in April. That's where I'm going to leave it. So Jim, How do you feel about that statement?
Yeah, I mean, on paper, I think you're right. I don't know that, obviously we're not seeing the wins and losses part of it, clearly. Right. So, yeah, I mean, I like it better. I guess my comment would be, to wrap it up, it's been slow and arduous and sometimes painstakingly incremental at times, it seems, over 162 game season. So I like some things. I really want this off season to like some more things. That's how I'll leave it. Michael, what about you?
Thinking grueling optimism, like just painfully grueling moments surrounded with optimism and a little bit of excitement, to be honest, towards the end of the year.
Now, that sounds like O'Neal Cruz's call up and rest of his season to me. Exactly. Because it was grueling optimism, wasn't it?
Yeah.
As you watched him kind of figure things out at this level, and there's still some things that they're going to be a problem sooner than later. We kind of all ignored that defense, but how long can we ignore that defense? Like it's going to become an issue sooner than later, right?
Yeah.
That's pretty much the whole season to me, though. You're right. Grueling optimism is a great way to look at it because you fought for every advancement all year.
You're right, but it was like like you were fighting in the Civil War where they're just walking towards each other, just taking bullets and falling down, instead of having an outline, a strategy where we're attacking, like the art of war. And that's what I'm hoping for, the plan in place moving forward. We saw some of that, I guess, fruit come to life, especially around August 30th and on. It seemed like it was a different team. They're running all over the place. The analytics with their base running was really good. And you think about all the mistakes they were making, they were able to capitalize. Even so, Cruz ran forward back one day and still scored. You watch Bay run on the bases and Key Bryant's still in 20. There's a lot of optimism, with the athletic ability and where these guys could be in a very quick way. But at the same time, like you're right, like it's hard to look at the analytics of Cruz being a above average defender analytically behind the scenes and then throw a ball 15 feet over Chavis's head. That's tough for fans, and I understand that. But for me, the grueling part is not letting them just go out and compete. The protection, the pitch counts, and all these things, like we don't know until we know what a kid's capable of. And that's always tough for me because I played parts of 8 seasons and it ended twice with the knee surgery, unexpected because of my genetics.
Yeah.
And if kids understood or these players understood that, like, you don't know what tomorrow brings. And the reality of it is, like, you got to fight like hell to make sure that you're in that lineup out on that field, no matter what. And I think some of the gruelingness was watching, some of our top prospects fight through injuries, not put up good numbers. And everybody's like, oh, are they going to be that good? Blah, blah. Well, nobody's told them that they don't have to fight now, fight later. And then up here, they're protecting them here. And it's like, no, let them go. Let's see if they can throw 3 days in a row. Let's see if they can handle this load, because once we start winning, you can't try then. You can't figure it out then. So
I do like, Michael, I do like the analogy you gave of like going more of like in attack mode, right? Whether that's the philosophy organizationally, from the coaching staff, from the players, how we dictate to the opponents instead of letting everything be dictated to the Pirates right now, whether it's, like you said, pitch counts and what are guys capable of, and just letting some of this play out on the field now. And let's just see what we've got moving forward. As I think not putting words in your mouth, but that's kind of what I interpreted from what you're saying too.
Yeah.
No, you didn't put words in my mouth at all. It was well said. It's just like at some point, let the guys play. And then that's why they have agents. Let the agents protect them. And we're a low budget team. We have to hit the throttle a lot harder than the LA Dodgers, right? Like we have to do things a little bit different and think a little bit different. I'm not saying like ruin these guys' career, but let them set their own limits instead of putting limits on them. And I think seeing that this year was really frustrating for me because I'm watching, I'm like, that's the thing that's going to be different. They're going to be able to quantify if this guy needs an 80 pitch count or a 90 or 120. It's like, don't hold him back, right? Like, does he need a day off? Maybe, maybe not. But like, I watched some of the matchups, like guys were getting days off and the days they shouldn't be getting days off. And that was tough for me because I'm like, he has no idea that like he matches up well and he's in a funk, but he matches up well against his team. Maybe that gets him out of that funk. So all those little things, that's what they're going to have to do moving forward. And I know they will, but why wait?
Yeah.
Self-inflicted wounds, I think, was another theme this year. Ooh. You're right. I mean, and because you're talking about coaching decisions, and I think we'll touch on more of that after the break here, but coaching decisions are one thing, but the general manager didn't provide things to help this team either early on. And, the bullpen getting to where it got is a direct reflection of the way they handled the starting pitching early on in the season. So that's, for me, systemic failure from the top down as far as managing a pitching staff. They created really the tailspin that happened in the last month and a half of the season, where they might have finished a little bit stronger with some of the athletes they had coming up.
Well, I think I'll top it off before you go to break, is like, if they would have just been transparent with what they're doing a little bit more, I think every fan would have been like, okay. And then next year we come in and be like, hey, you better prove it now. We sat, we watched this, because like that was the problem for me. Like I couldn't figure out why Zach Thompson pitched 4 times in the month of August, and Crow's getting destroyed, Underwood's getting destroyed, and DeYoung had a bad last week. He's getting destroyed. And I'm like, well, tell them what's happening. They're working on things. They're working on his lower half. So they obviously have a plan, which is okay with me. He's 6'8", and he has some really cool numbers if you look at him. And he's shown success as a starter on one of the better starting staffs of baseball in Miami. So like I get it, but like throw that out there. Like if you are more transparent and you give more understanding to the fans, I think they'll get behind what's going on. But it's hard to break that mold that's been for so long. Is like, oh, they're just going to get rid of them when they're a free agent. Oh, they're just doing the same old Pirate stuff. Like they're not. They're literally not doing the same stuff, especially from the development side. They just have to share it. And some of the stuff they did this year, they put themselves in a terrible spot because they were looking at it, trying to win, maybe not here, not with this guy, not with him, not okay, we're going to do it with him, instead of just being like, all right, where are we trying to go? Let's try to figure this out. If someone surprises us, we'll make an adjustment, instead of trying to be secretive or not explain it all. Like, be straightforward.
Boys and girls, if you don't come back after this break, it's on you. It's on you, because this is the way it's going to be. All right, and welcome back to the Pirates Fan Forum here on DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. Got Jim and the Fort with us, and we are going to start answering some questions for y'all. And amongst that, you're going to get a little bit more of the fire that came in the first segment, because these topics, first of all, interest the hell out of us. Now, Jim and I have been railing on social media about these catchers with their one knee down, with runners on base. Now, before you go off, Fort, I already saw your little segment that you did on AT&T.
Gary, what you don't see right now is he's doing this podcast on one knee right now. So that's,
That is true.
He might
I got my pitch comment right now too.
Might be, but we got it from our buddy Josh over at Bridge to Bucktober. He did exclamation points, Fort. He's like, we got to know why these catchers won't get off their knee with runners on base. I got from Pittsburgh Sports all the time. How does Michael feel about catching on one knee? I got it from Douglas Ford. Jim and I have been pounding it too. We don't understand it.
We do, but we don't to an extent. So
please explain.
I guess the first thing is what do you understand and what do you not understand? And I'll kind of fill in some of those gaps, because it drives me insane too. I mean,
I understand that it
my
increases.
Nickname is the Fort, and watching balls go to the backstop drives me insane.
I understand that it increases the framing accuracy. It makes it a little easier to pull that ball up into the zone. I get that aspect of it. So with guys not on base, I don't care. But as soon as there's someone on base, to me, I just want to go and kick him in the shins.
And especially third, especially when there's a runner on third. You have one job. You have one job at the end of the day. And Michael, I know there's a lot of other things going on when you're catching, but the one thing you cannot let that ball pass you when there's a runner at third base. Just go, because I'll keep going.
So before I give you my thought on the actual one knee, Stallings won the Gold Glove based on his ability to block the ball, not allow 90 feet advancements, especially at third base. So that's how he won the Gold Glove. His receiving went down, his throwing went down, his blocking went through the roof. And obviously he never had a pass ball, and his wild pitches just completely bottomed out. So first that they signed Perez, right? One of the top 10 blocker, top 10 thrower, top 10 receiver. Neither one of those guys consistently stays on their knees with runners on base. Period. So I don't think the intention for the Pirates was that. I think development system has created that. And guys like Real Muto, guys that can really handle it with their mobility and athleticism, they're not letting balls get by them. It's just we're watching the Pirates do it, right? Heineman was pretty good across the board with blocking, receiving, and throwing, even if he was on a knee. But he wasn't always on a knee. But he's really athletic. Now, Delay, he couldn't move well to the right. So he needed to change knees, change the way he was doing it, move as the ball's coming if he's starting on a knee. But if you want to talk about throwing, guys throw better a lot of times, especially from a young level up, because it keeps them close to the ground. And with that knee in the ground, you're more stable. But they should be able to move left and right and understand the situation, the guy they're catching. What does he want? And a lot of guys don't care. But if they do, you have to kind of navigate through that. But at the end of the day, if you can't get it in front of you, especially in that, people say 6 inches left, 6 inches right. I always thought about a foot plus left, right. So maybe 15 inches. If I can't get that ball on my knee, I don't need to be down there. If my mobility is not good enough, to reach across and hold that, I don't need to be down there. I can fall as I'm catching it. It's what LaCroix did. That's what Stallings does. That's what Real Muto does sometimes. There's a lot of different variables. It's got to be owned by each individual. So
I have a couple follow-ups there.
Yeah,
one is
go for it.
I've watched Tony Pena catch.
Right.
I've seen him like almost look like he was playing in a sandbox, laying down to catch the ball and still get up and throw a guy out at second.
Right.
Unique talent, freak arm.
Exactly.
Yeah,
He can get away with it, right?
Right.
So my follow-up,
incredible athlete.
my follow-up to that before I let Jim go, because he's going to explode, is the coaching staff watches this for months. How do they not stop that?
Well,
I mean,
let me take that one
I
step
get
further.
what you're saying about comfort, but
Right. I'll take it one step further for you. So like I agree. And that's where that transparency is really, really important, because there's no way, even though they were both, I'm just going to stay with DeLay and Heineman, even though they were both plus receivers, if you added the sum total of strikes to, runs saved comparative to the balls that got past them and runs lost, there's no comparison. I don't even have to look at the numbers. I can tell you right now, there's no comparison, because I literally watched, he was a plus, they're both right at a +2 run saved. I watched 2 games in the last week, 2 runs scored with the block, right?
game over.
We're called equal, right? That's how the game started. So that's the problem with me, is like, where's the balance? Like, if you can say the receiving, if they let 10 balls go by throughout the year, okay, they're getting 10. You're saying they're getting 10 runs through the receiving, right? Why can't we balance that out a little bit? And biggest thing is a psychological issue for the pitcher. If I don't keep the ball in front of me with a runner, on you think he's going to make his best pitch? And that's the number one concern across the board. Receiving doesn't matter. Nothing matters. It's his mind out there that matters. If he doesn't believe he can throw a ball, 55 feet when he needs to, there's a problem. And that's the communication. That's the transparency, because I watched some things this year with the pitch counts, everything else. I think that's why Ortiz didn't pitch well towards the end. He's trying to do more. I think that's why Contreras didn't pitch good towards the end, even though his numbers were good. He didn't pitch well. And the reason is because he got shut down and he was our best pitcher. You guys actually wrote about that. And I think there's a psychological mess that plays in a guy's head, because, I came into 2013, think I was a starter. They signed Russell Martin. He took my number and no one called me. You think I tried too hard when I came back? Absolutely.
Sure.
And that's a problem. And nobody ever wanted to address it. AJ Burnett did. A teammate did. And that's where our team got close. And that's the problem with right now, is like, we're starting to have a team and you want to make sure those guys are taking over. And I think Shelton's great. I think that the coaching staff's great. It's just, what's the elements behind the scenes that we don't see with the analytical department and that's being pushed down, and why? If they can't explain why and take hard questions, that's a problem for the fans. It's a problem for me as a former player and an analyst, because that's what you want to know. Like, what's the direction? How quick? What's the goals? If we don't have goals, what are we doing?
Jim, are you going to explode, or did he answer the knee question for you? Can we move on?
No, we can't. We can't move yet, just because we
cannot.
What I want people to understand too is and you touched on it, Michael, which is that absolute trust a pitcher has to have in the guy behind the plate, that he doesn't have to think for 1 second, if I break this pitch off and it's in the dirt, this guy's going to do what needs to be done to make sure that this ball doesn't go more than, that foot you're talking about, where it does not skip away or get behind there. That cannot be part of the equation, because like you said, that's affecting what he thinks he can do. And so it's just, I don't know if people understand. I think they know that, catching's important and whatnot, but man, that trust has to be there. And it's just a little thing that no one would ever pick up on. But if you're not in the mindset and doing your job the way it has to be done, it affects so many things on that baseball field.
Oh, you're nailing it. And I like to compare. I'm really into tactical strategy, and I've got a lot of friends that were in the military. And one thing that they constantly preach is you want to train for all the things unexpected, but you would really want to expect the best out of every situation. It's going to turn out great, but not train that way. So they need to expect that every single time they throw that, nasty breaking ball, because we have some guys with some nasty stuff in the dirt. It's no problem. Now, the unexpected thing is what will really make someone say, man, that dude saved my life right there. Just like if you go into a bunker with somebody, you trust the man next to you, you have to. If not, you're going to probably end up in a box. And I'm not saying it's that extreme, but like,
Right.
if you put that context to it, it's a cool way to look at it in the sense of like, how far are you willing to like really psychologically look at this? Because there is a reality there. You can see it in their face, the trust, right? They
Yeah.
shake off. Like everyone on the planet knows just throw a breaking ball and he throws a heater and it's a double in the gap. Well, there's a reality to that. Like he was scared to
Sure.
death because he would rather give up the hit and take the chance that maybe he doesn't hit this than throw the right pitch in the dirt and know he's going to swing at it.
Right. And I did, and it's one other thing I wanted to mention is I stumbled on an article. It was from the Nationals and how they are kind of trying to emphasize, like you talked about, which is that hybrid approach to it, that, you know, when there are no runners on and you want to be down on one knee and go through, you know, whatever you need to do at that point of the game, great. But they want guys to be able to do both situationally in games. And I think that's all Gary and I harp on, is that with all the analytics we have and everything we pay attention to, we throw that out the window when the guy's on third and you don't want to just stop the run. That just blows my mind that we're like, that focused on numbers.
Let me put a bow on this subject so we can move on to another question.
Wait, before you say that, here's the thing. There's no way they're not quantifying it though. And that's the problem. That's the transparency. They're not throwing it out the window. There's a reason. And that, like, they don't talk about it, or maybe that it's for the future, or maybe they just care about their guys hitting the mitt.
Yeah, because it doesn't make sense from the outside. If
I can move a guy
right now, there's no way it can make sense, even if they have a matrix, because just by absolute eye, the eye test tells you exactly what you need to say. If we look at across the board, wild pitches, we have to be towards the top. Granted, we had rookies, we had a lot of guys learning new stats. Sure. There's a lot that goes into it, but like same time, like what's the fix? What's the movement forward? And that's really important.
If we can move a guy a foot or two in between pitches for statistical advantage in the field, then I think we can stop guys from catching with one leg. So we should probably take another quick break here. We'll come back and do another question.
I'm all worked up, man. I gotta cool off a little.
Yeah.
I got a little sweat going too.
All right, welcome back to the Pirates Fan Forum here on DK Pittsburgh Sports. The behind the scenes is nuts for this episode, by the way. Jim and I are going to be all over the YouTube chat, just dishing. I mean, first, the conversation's been arguably better than what you've listened to, and the technical difficulties have really gotten out of control. And Eddie is going to have so much fun stitching this together. It's exciting. So let's do another question here for the Fort. This is from Douglas Ford. And he says, do you think that Endy and Davis can share the catching duties long-term? Like, even if they have a veteran like Roberto Perez and they only go 2 times a week. I mean, how do you feel about that? How would that work with their development as catchers? Would it impede them ever becoming great catchers?
I don't think so. I think if there's a balance there, the fear is you have them doing too many things. If you can say, hey, Davis, you're going to catch and you're going to play right field. Indy, you're going to play first base and you're going to catch, and we'll rotate you through DH. And then you get, a veteran guy to help kind of balance out the game plans, maybe even come in defensively at times if need be, and also allow them to pinch hit if they had a day off. So, like, I see the benefit. I think just having that extra guy on the roster, they should find someone that's a really athletic catcher. We saw what happened this year with Van Meter when, a bad situation happened. He had to go behind the plate. But I like that idea. I like the idea of being able to do that. And I'll use a great example. When I was in low A, I caught, 90 games or so. And then, no, I'd say 110 games because it was a different era. And, I DH every other, almost played every single game. So not the same, but like if you have to, but we only had 2 catchers. So like when I DH'd, I was bullpen DH. And it was fine. And I think these guys are so young, they can do whatever they want if they just prepare their minds for it. But they need to understand, like, hey, you don't have to worry about throwing from left, throwing from right, taking grounders at third, taking grounders at first, and catching bullpens.
Too much, maybe.
It's too much. Yeah. They be athletic. Like, just trust that they can figure it out if you throw them out there like Little League. You're putting them in there for bat, be average, focus on catching.
Right. Well, you mentioned Roberto Perez real quick, so let's touch on him. How important do you think it is? Because I think, in my opinion, I think fans tend to gloss over how important it is to maybe have a veteran catcher on the staff for these young pitchers, right? Especially ones of Perez's caliber or a Stallings or something like that. Where are you at on that with him? I'm not asking you to get any predictions whether he's coming back or not, but just how important is it to have a guy like that on your staff still?
Extremely. I think you kind of look at the elements: catching, infield, pitching, and then I'd even say bullpen. Like having a veteran there, especially one with, the pedigree like Perez or Stallings, also like Dejan Kovacevic, if he's available, I think he'd be a great pickup. He's a friend of mine. But those guys come in, they know what they're supposed to do. They know what they're trying to do, and they're willing to support these young guys. And a lot of them now with Stallings, he's also been in Miami, caught one of the best staffs in baseball. So if he's available, it'd be a great guy to bring back. What are they doing? Why are they doing it? You get all that information. I mean, Perez and Dejan Kovacevic, they've been around, did different things. That's how you start to learn and grow within the organization, especially in the clubhouse and the coaching staff. But more importantly, those guys have somebody to lean on. And then you have offensive catchers coming through the system that are literally knocking on the door that you could say, all right, guys, he's going to help here. You have your analytical staff, and these guys are going to bring down the player plans. Then you have Perez kind of sifting through the philosophy, helping with the personality, bridging the gap to these youngsters. It's a huge benefit. Like I think if you're not doing that right now, it's silly. Even if he's your 26 man, he catches once a week.
Yeah. Yeah. I really do agree with that. I think to put that pressure on young guys with everything else they have to do to get acclimated and deal with being a Major League Baseball player, they can go to, the pitchers can go to. And the knowledge is just, you can't replace the knowledge, can you? The experience and the knowledge.
No, I'll even take it further. I think I was actually talking to somebody in the Pirates developmental department about, having two pitching coaches and then a catcher as the pitching coach staff. And then having a hitting coach, one that's focused on approach, which they kind of have this, but it's not, one that's focused on approach, one that's focused on cage, and then one's focused on the personality of the plan, and then let it play out. Guys are going to fall in love with different things, but the reality of it is they need more voices. They need more questions. They need more people kind of giving their thought and opinion to bounce it around to figure out what's the best play. And we all know, sometimes you're talking to somebody man, I just don't like talking to that person that much. They're pouring information into me, but it's just not what I need. It's not
Jerry Mills.
Too much.
That's why.
Jerry Mills.
Why.
You know what I mean? Just thinking outside the box. Maybe you don't know if Perez is going to be healthy. Give him $1 million and say, just come be with us.
Right. Here's another question.
Great investment for a Pirates team.
Here's another question. This one's from Pirate Queen. And you know her you sit over there right across the diamond from her, watching her wave the flag out there, and
I love it. Yeah,
all the way down the left field line. So, what changes do you predict the pitch clock will have on calling pitches and overall behind the plate strategy? What would be your methods to achieve the most effective results with the new time limits?
I would make sure my guy is okay. So if he's a slow guy, I'm figuring out a way to make that clock stop. If he's a fast guy, I'm trying to make that clock mean so much and the hitter's going to panic. I'm always going to find a way to manipulate it to make sure it benefits the guy that's on the mound, period. And that's what anybody should be doing. The first time it started in the minor leagues, I went back down. I'd never seen it before. I'd been in the big leagues for 6 years straight, went back down, had a pitch clock. Well, as soon as the guy was like, hey, you only have 8 seconds, I threw the ball right in the ground. Stop, like whatever, like completely over his head, like whatever I had to do. Like it didn't
I didn't
matter.
even think about things like that.
Yeah.
No, like it's like, what do you mean we have a time limit? Like, no,
like you don't have enough to worry about. Now you got to,
But like, that's what I tell the pitcher. Don't worry about it. And I argued with the guy behind the plate. I got thrown out of a game because he called a strike and the pitcher wasn't on the rubber. It's just like, they have to be really careful here. Like, if you're going to make these rules, you have to do it with warnings and money. If you affect the game, that's a problem for me. Even the licking and doing that, the ball, I hate it. Like, warning, fine. Money talks.
What do you think that's going to do to the hitters, though? Are they, because I haven't read any mechanism that stops them from stepping out or, causing delays of their own. Certainly a pitch clock can't be going and then they jump in the box last second, right? I mean, like, how's that work?
Plus you get that darn eyelash in your eye. You gotta, I need some time to get that.
I'll ask for one question. It's always at the office is everybody fiddles with their batting gloves, right? If anybody out there owns batting gloves, like they're really good. Franklin was the company I went with. They're awesome. Well, guess what? When my hands start sweating, I have to fiddle or like they're actually going to like shift in my hand. So like these guys that are doing that, it's not because some of them have ticks, some of them it's a nervous thing, some of them it's a routine. Yeah. But like a lot of guys, it's just the fact that like that thing starts sliding, the bat moves in your hand. You're already, at a disfavor of actually winning this battle against this guy. Now let's make sure we're more disfavor. And it's my career. And it's tough. It's a fine balance they have to find.
I could say the same thing for every pitcher that wants to go to the rosin bag in between each pitch.
Exactly.
I mean, like
yeah, it's so many different things, and like
there's so much. You're exactly right. That's where I have a problem with is like they're throwing out these blanket rules when like if you really want to do something to help the game, make a run rule, right? Allow the team at a certain time to be a tie, like because then you're actually protecting players. You're actually saying we care about the players. We don't want to see position players throw or whatever. Like do the things that's going to help the game, enhance it. There's nobody on the planet that wants less commercials. So make the faster games make sense, right? They want, more action, right? How does a pitch clock make more action? How does a shift make more action? There's still going to be more strikeouts next year than there were this year. There's still going to be more walks. And those are the two problems. And there's still going to be more foul tips than ever before. Yeah. There's 3 things that they didn't fix at all. And there's more hit by pitches than ever, I believe, this year. Well,
I think they've created a menace on the base paths too, like that limiting how many times a pitcher can go to first base.
Boy, I don't like that.
What's going to happen there?
It's going to create catchers going to first base, like with between each pitch.
And they're going to start holding more. They're going to step off. Like they're going to do all the things you hate, right? Like,
actually, they're counting step offs.
Okay, then they're just going to hold the ball.
Yeah.
Well, look, before we get on to something else, because we've been so focused with you with the catching. Let's talk about it from a hitter standpoint more with like, okay, forget like you made a great point. Batting gloves, sweaty hands, getting things. I mean, there's a lot going on, but there's also just like that thought process when you're working a count and try and the things you need to do in between pitches mentally and stepping out and gathering your thought. You got to be back in the box within like 7 or 8 seconds. To me, like as a hitter, I get stressed out thinking about that because there are times where that's fine, but there are times whenever I don't want any kind of time clock on that. I mean, how do you think of that as a hitter?
Well, the game's so different than even when I retired after 17 that these guys are like Kyle Schwarber's a great example. Like he's changed his career by, when he went to Boston, right before he went to Boston, he started hitting the elevated fastball because everyone was falling in love with spin rate, that 4-seam fastball. Well, he started saying, I'm going to get on top of that bad boy and do some damage. And he did. And the fact that he did was a big, big deal because most guys can't even fathom trying to do that. So like if guys are keeping that approach, sorry, I don't want to let my computer die. If they're keeping that approach, the reality of it is like you have to think. And if you're not thinking, you're losing. these guys don't want to lose. So you're exactly right. Like the analytical department that are creating these game plans, they're not making the time go slower, right? They're looking at their wrist, they're doing this. There's so much going on. It's become a thinking man's game too. And that is an anxiety, because if I played right now, I would bet on percentages. I would look at areas, I'd look for pitches, I'd go off that guy, how he feels and what he tends to go to. And it's also going to create some really cool things as a player and an analyst. The pitch calm and the anxiety of what you're talking about is going to let hitters see tipping of pitches like crazy. You just wait.
I totally agree with you.
And that's what we talk about all the time on this show, is like the unintended consequences of things. And you're just never quite sure until they implement things. And they're implementing so many things right now. Boy, is it a Pandora's box, guys?
Hey, what do you say we get for it with a loaded question here? We got a loaded question from the launch pad. You ready?
Launch pad, I like the name.
Yeah. We call them TLP because we don't feel like typing it out, but yeah. It's do you think the Pirates will make their first significant commitment to a free agent under this regime this offseason? So first, I'll let you define what significant is. And do you think this offseason is when they go out and try to take a swing?
I wish I could say yes and no, but I doubt it. And the reason why I say that is because where do you put him? Like maybe first base. You don't want to just a true DH because like you want to be able to rotate your players. But like you also there's so much firepower and uncertainty of how good these guys could be just with a year in the winter, knowing that they're going to be big leaguers, having a really good idea and a really good game plan of what they want to do. O'Neal Cruz saying he wants to be one of the best players in baseball has to make everybody just ecstatic. Keith Bryan just taking a step forward, hitting. And you just look at this, Swinsky just putting the ball in play 15 more times would make him an unbelievable talent on paper. So you're just looking around, and then you're not talking about Nick Gonzalez. You're not talking about, all these big guys that are underneath that either played hurt or had a tough season. If they just take a step forward, Ortiz was our 20th rated prospect. Nobody thought he was coming to the big leagues, right? De Los Santos, nobody knew him. He didn't even get protected. Like, there's a lot to be optimistic about, and they're not going to put people in their way. But I'll tell you right now, if there's someone available that can help them right out of the gate next year and he's in their budget, they're going to grab him, and people are going to be in the minor leagues to start, and they're going to shuffle guys like crazy. That it has to happen at some point. Like, people are going to get traded. It's going to piss people off, but like there's going to be a reality behind it, because when Sherrington thinks it's the time, I think we all have seen he's not going to wait. He's going to go. He's going to go as fast as he can.
I think I agree with most of that. I think I see more obvious holes. For instance, I think first base is pretty obvious. Any first baseman they have, I believe they either have to create.
That's the one I agree completely with.
They either have to create it by, say, making Cal Mitchell, whose arm has come into question in the outfield, might be a candidate to move to first base. Now, I can't speak to his footwork. I'm not going to pretend that I know whether he can do that or not. But something like that you could see having to take place. Catching, obviously, they have to bring in a veteran catcher, because no matter how good Endy is, they have to fill that hole.
Yeah, none of those seem like those aren't significant. Like
starting pitching is though, because while I agree with you, I can count about 8 guys that I think can contribute right now to that starting room next year. Man, do I want a veteran? And even if it was Quintana coming back, and more so, man, they have to have a lefty. Have to.
Yeah, I have something for you guys to think about. And you guys said you do a YouTube show after this. So like, I just theoretically, bear with me here. So like, I think if they can go out and get, 1 or 2 free agents and sign them, whether they're starting pitching or not, I think the more important thing is lock up JT Brubaker. Okay. Just bear with me. Say, JT, you have a chance to start. We really like you in the bullpen, and we see you possibly being able to be a setup guy. Let him go out there and punch tickets, let things tick up. Kind of look at it really oddly. Like, I think creating what the Braves have and locking in the core, especially the guys that you really are like, I love them as human beings and I believe in them as a human. Don't worry about the analytics. Don't worry about the performance. Lock them in. Give them money now, just like they did Keith Bryan last year.
Yeah.
Say, we're going to give you a little bit more now, give you signing bonus. We're going to defer money, and then go out and get Andrew McCutcheon. Get him in here, let him get his 400th double or whatever it is, his 300th homer, and celebrate that in this city. Sign him to a 2-year deal, give him deferred money and say, please, we want you to stay here after the fact and just be around these guys. No role, no anything else. Go get more guys from Pittsburgh. Go trade for Bednar's brother. Bring the city around this team. Show the commitment that you're willing to have. Like they did with Hayes, great. But like, do it now. Like, if you really believe in Indy or whatever, right after spring training, sign him to an awesome deal like Jimenez with the White Sox. Like, get weird. Like that but it has to be based around quality people because it's a win-win then, in my opinion. Because then if they get hurt or whatever else, they're still pouring in. They're still trying to give back. And they're still trying to do everything they can possibly to help this team win because that's what they see. The other part is I would use money to give incentives. If you're going to be different, you have to be different. Now, I would use a lot of my resources to say, the more you win, the more money I'm going to give you. And it's behind the scenes. Maybe nobody ever knows about it. But we're wondering why are guys bunting? Why are they moving guys over? Why are they doing all the things that don't help them in arbitration and don't look good analytically, but they're winning because they're a different ball club. And they're doing things completely different.
It's interesting.
Well, that's going to have to happen a little bit just the way things are measured in general in baseball because, you can't go by the normal numbers anymore with what they're asking guys to do. So, whether we're talking wins and losses and for pitchers or quality starts, how many innings that is, like everything's going to have to be recalibrated anyway with the way things are going. So I agree with you in the sense, just thinking outside the box, the Pirates have to do that. They have to.
I mean, when you started out talking about Brubaker, I think a lot of people that is off the wall because they don't see him as like, oh, he's part of the core, like, Mitch Keller or O'Neill Cruz or Brian Reynolds, right? Which I think those three right there, you want to show me you're committed? Well, how about I don't have to think about them leaving in 3-4 years?
Yep.
Lock them up.
But that's why I like the idea of Brubaker. The fact he started that last game is all I need.
Well, Brubaker to me is a milk and eggs guy. Okay, now a milk and eggs guy is like he's the staple that you always want to have in your pantry.
Yes.
And sometimes you have to go out and buy that exotic spice to have the ingredients all come together and make something really good.
Yeah, no doubt.
But you got to always have the milk and eggs in the house and the bread. So I lock up those mid-tier guys like that.
Gary,
like
he's going to steal that, by the way.
1,000%.
Well, good. You know where to throw that credit, man. I mean, you got a bigger ampliphone than I do. So. But like you need to do things like that and lock up those guys that you're going to have anyway. People forget you got to have middle of the rotation guys. You got to have middle of the bullpen guys. Look at what Suter in Milwaukee has meant to that team.
Right. And I'm saying if you lock him up, then he's not fighting to stay in that starting rotation when he gets pushed out. He's happy, right? He's getting his big league time. He's getting guaranteed money. That changes things for people. And I don't think like a lot of times like we think like that, but like that's a reality. You're signing him because he's that milk and eggs. And if you're worried about him staying healthy, right? He hasn't finished the season yet. Like you can push him to the bullpen. Hey, you're going to be either our long guy, first guy out, or, if his stuff just ticks up, like I think it would, he's throwing 97 mile-an-hour sinker with a nasty slider and breaking ball. I mean, you're talking about a back end of the bullpen type guy that could throw 2 innings and he's used to it. But that's all like going to happen if they really believe in a human being and say, yeah, we want him to stay, and they get creative on why you bring guys in, like pitch Kutch to come back and get his final stuff here and say, hey, we'll defer money.
He does have a lot of milestones coming up. That are
he
right
lives
there.
Here.
So
he lives here.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like, there's a huge advantage.
Named his kid Steele, for God's sake.
Right?
I mean, like, come on now.
Yeah.
Like the dude belongs here. So, Jim, I think you said you had something interesting you wanted to bring up to Fort before we let him go today.
Yeah, man, I did. I was, looking over your career numbers, man, and I was like, let me find something weird in here. Let me, and then spring it on you and see what you have to say about it. So, so let me get to it real quick here. And See if you even remember it. So tell me parts of how many, was 7, 8 years in professional baseball and Major League Baseball?
Major League Baseball, 14, I think.
Okay, total. But in the majors, tell me what had to happen in 2011 for you to play an inning at third base in a baseball game. Because
I did not expect that to happen.
Listen, I will dig deep. I will dig deep on you, buddy.
Well, I'll tell you the one I thought you were going to say, because I had a buddy ask me about this the other day, but keep going. Finish it up.
Okay, no. So, like, what happened? Do you remember it? B, what was the scenario that you ended up at third with probably someone else's glove, I would assume, playing for one inning, and everything else besides, I think you had one game at DH, but everything else was shocker catcher. So how did that all take place?
So, yes, I used someone else's glove. That was the last time, I think, but that was the last time I didn't have all the gloves in my bag the rest of my career. I used to when I was young, and they just never let me do it. I did it, in college and whatnot. So
yeah.
So when that happened, we're playing Milwaukee in 2011. I don't know if you remember that team. Ryan Braun, fielder, Corey Hart, Ricky Weeks. Just happened that first guy up's Ricky Weeks. He doesn't even know what right field is, right? Michael's at third base. And I'm like,
whose glove did you borrow, by the way? Do you remember that?
Oh, no chance.
Okay.
It could have been an outfield glove.
Okay.
I don't even remember like walking out there. It's my rookie season. I just floated. And
okay.
All right, get the ball. Let's get the ball. I want the ball. And I was just thinking, just block it. Like, take it off the chest, grab it, and throw it across the diamond. So Ricky Weeks, I believe, I don't know if he led off or it was like second order. It went Ricky Weeks, Ryan Braun, fielder. And they shifted us over with fielder. And then Corey Hart. I'm like, all right, there's a great chance I'm going to get a ball here. But yeah, they emptied the bench. And I don't think Domit, maybe it was Domit that was catching. He had to move, or he was playing, I don't know what happened, but like Domit had to go behind the plate. I had to come out from behind the plate and go to third base. It was a mess. But
that's awesome. That is awesome.
I don't even know if we won the game. I just remember.
No wonder you had so much sympathy for Van Meter going behind the plate the other day, like this year.
I was just glad you remembered. I figured you would, but there are some things that you just don't remember. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Ford, this was great, man. Thank you for being so generous with your time. I know this was difficult to pull off, but I really appreciate it, man. It was great talk as always.
Absolutely. Anytime, guys. And like, I think you guys do a wonderful job. And yeah, I hate that it was a little bit difficult, but anytime you want to talk ball, I'm in.
Let's do it again, man. This was super fun, dude. I could do this all day. So, but yeah, thanks, Michael.
Yeah,
appreciate it, buddy.
Yeah. God bless, guys. Thanks.
All right. Thanks, brother. And Jim, how do people get a hold of you, brother?
Yeah. So it's for the city _412 or at Jim Stamm 22 on Twitter. And you know me with the Pirates and Penguins and Pitt and Steelers. It's all Pittsburgh all the time. So
do you want to go all proud papa and toss it to your son, since you're all, I just talked to Major League puff chest right now. You might as well toss it off to Ben and the show.
Yeah. So you don't know this, but Ben, my 6-year-old, ends the show with the Let's Go Bucs. So I'm going to hand it over to him right now. And go ahead, little buddy. Take it away.
Let's go Bucs!